Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Youth Matters, the show looking at local, global and national issues affecting the youth of today. Now on today's show we are discussing the topic love or arranged marriage. Now there's many who are divided on the opinion of what is the best way to get married in this day and age with all the challenges that exist. But, you know, some will argue that arranged marriage is outdated and, you know, the way forward now is love, while others will say, no, look at the statistics. 53% of people around the world have an arranged marriage. So clearly it's working and clearly there's a lot of value behind it. So what's your opinion? If you've got a take on that, then please get in touch. And that is what we will be discussing with our panel today. Now, to introduce our panel, we have three amazing people who will contribute, I'm sure, immensely to this discussion. First of all, Adil Anwar, a university student, so we'll have the perspective of someone who's amongst the youth who can tell us how they're feeling when it comes to marriage. So welcome to the show. London Jubair, who is an artist and also a comedian, and has assured me that the jokes this time around will be better than previously.
Hopefully,
okay,
I'll
hopefully.
try.
And you know, we look forward to finding out your opinions on the topic today. So thank you for coming on the show. And finally, Mahmoud Ahmed, a friend of the show, CEO of InspireMillion.com. And alhamdulillah, it's befitting that, you know, 25th year of his marriage anniversary, he is here. And I'm sure he can share his wealth of experience in marriage and how to make sure it works, okay, for that duration, inshallah, by the end of the show. So thank you, Mr. Bay, for coming on.
Thank you.
All right. So once again, this show is all about you. It's all about the youth. It's all about our community. What do you think? The question that I want to propose to our audience at home today is arranged marriage outdated? What is your view on that? Do you agree? Do you disagree? All right. As always, get involved. We've got so many different ways that you can get involved. You've got the number on the screen, so do dial in and tell us what your view is on that. You can email the show, which will come straight directly to me, and I can read it out. Or you can, if you're out and about and your loved ones can't watch it at home, they can watch this on the go because we are live on Facebook. So do whatever way you can, connect and make sure you're part of the discussion. So we'll go straight into the first question with you, Adil, yeah? So there might be people watching at home thinking, what's the difference between love marriage and an arranged marriage? So help us out.
I think it's difficult to give both of those concepts a clear definition, especially nowadays, because, you know, to define both concepts, you need to define in one what the definition of love is, in the other what the definition of arranged is.
So in simple terms, if you had to briefly define it in one sentence each, how would you define it?
I think generally in the community the view would probably be that love marriage is where you've known someone for a considerable period of time outside of marriage, and then you get to marry them. And arranged is where your relationship has already sort of been arranged by perhaps family members, and then you enter into a marital contract, and then you're then married.
Sure. Okay. Brilliant. Now, Jubair, one of the stats here: 6% of global divorces are to do with are based around arranged marriages. Okay. So clearly, that's quite low. That's considerably low compared to obviously other types of routes that people take to marriage. Now, do you think arranged marriage is a outdated concept?
Not necessarily. If it helps get people married, then certainly use it as a means. I don't see it as a old-fashioned tool. It still works, and people do still stay in relationships based on arranged marriages. It shouldn't be taken, like, statistics shouldn't sway it in any way, shape or form. Sorry, I didn't have any jokes, but next time maybe. Yeah.
Okay, hopefully. And what about in terms of, if you had to define arranged marriage very simply, how would you define it? Because we obviously, Adil defined love marriage.
I would say a love marriage is where, I don't know, a boy and a girl meet in college, and then their parents...
Oh, it has to be college?
In college, and then their parents find out, and then the daughter gets sent to Bangladesh and gets an arranged marriage.
Okay. That sounds like a film, a plot in a film. But tell me this, in terms of, so love marriage is when a person meets, they know one another. How would you define arranged marriage?
I don't know, just an agreement with, well, basically, I don't really know too much about it. I'm not too fully aware of how people get married. It's slightly, I'm bemused by the whole system, to be honest.
Okay, so maybe someone a bit more experienced, Masood Bhai, if you could enlighten us with what do we understand by arranged marriage?
I'm going to be a bit pedantic. Okay. I believe any marriage needs love, and it needs to be arranged for it to happen. So
okay.
my definition of a marriage is that it needs to be arranged and it needs to have love.
Wow.
So take it as you see.
Okay, so, but just for the benefit of people watching this at home, who we're saying a love marriage is where the people know one another before they get married, and I guess the common understanding is arranged marriage is where the two people don't know one another, but maybe through their family or however you may have, they get together. So I think just for the benefit.
Yeah, I think the idea of marrying somebody who's a complete stranger is, you know, it used to exist in the olden days, but I think in this day and age, very few people would agree to a marriage where they've never heard of somebody, they've never met somebody, never seen somebody, and they just get married to. I mean, that's the typical concept of an arranged marriage. But generally speaking, most marriages that I come across, they are arranged through consultation and everything else. And purely, if you're talking about the Islamic concept of a marriage, where, you know, yes, it is encouraged that parents and elders get involved in arranging it, but ultimately it has to have consent and agreement of
would you say that's just
the boy
Islamic,
and
or
girl.
could you not argue that it's also cultural, that parents get involved in the community?
In most cultures, yeah, in most cultures, in any culture, parents would get involved.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, in the British culture, some people think that parents have nothing to do with it. But generally speaking, any parent given the opportunity would want to see their children are happily married if they want to get married.
That's
that
fine.
is. Yeah.
Thank you. Adil, going to you, back to, you're going to have to cover a bit of arranged marriage for me, okay? So why is it that there are people who choose to go down the arranged marriage route?
I mean, we've mentioned religion already. I think that's quite a common. I mean, if you already have, if you've got the Islamic concept where, which is premised with segregation, and you know, some would argue perhaps the lack of remixing, then it would make sense only to know someone through at a certain level in a certain type of relationship through marriage.
Okay.
So I think.
So why would someone choose the arranged marriage route as opposed to, say, the love marriage route? That's the question I'm asking you.
It could be religion, it
Okay.
could be culture, because we know that a lot of arranged marriages in this country happen from people who originate from a certain part of the world, the Indian subcontinent. And you know, it's not just Islam that's prevalent there. There's also Hinduism and Sikhism. And I think a lot of that does come from perhaps the notion that you must marry within your own tribe, your own caste, you know, to a certain family member perhaps. And in certain cultures, and this isn't religion at all, this is just purely cultural, you know, it's quite a shame that sometimes the suitor's already decided for you at a very young age, and you don't really have a say in that. So that's quite an extreme form of an arranged marriage. But generally, if it's happening in this country, I think it would be where,
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Jubair, coming back to you as well. So, you know, following on from what Adil was saying, so what could be some of the other reasons why people, you know, choose to pursue the arranged marriage route?
I suppose it's just what they know. It's traditional. It's what their parents passed on to them. So you know, you stick with what you know. I won't dispute it, but you know, at the moment, the young kids aren't feeling it because it doesn't represent their lives. So.
Okay, we're now going to watch a short video where a familiar face, and you'll know who I'm talking about when you watch this, talks about their experience of having an arranged marriage. So let's watch that and then we'll come back to the discussion.
I spoke to my husband for about 6 months, never met him. We were introduced by our fathers and never met him, and the first day that we met was the day we got engaged, and the second day we met was the...
I knew what the word honour was from a very early age. I knew what I could do and what I couldn't.
I spoke to my husband for about 6 months, never met him. We were introduced by our fathers and never met him, and the first day that we met was the day we got engaged, and the second day we met was the day we got married.
Oh, I can see why you said yes.
God. Yeah, he's all right.
He's a handsome man. Did you know what he looked like before?
I did see a couple of pictures, but that was like 11 years ago, so there was no Facebook.
No photoshopping or anything.
There was no Skyping or videos.
Did that influence you in any way?
I mean, He had a ponytail, by the way, which was, no, we got rid of that as soon as we got married. No, not happening. So, no, we're not keeping the ponytail.
Okay.
But, yeah, that
What
was...
did you think when you saw him that first day when you saw him in real life?
I didn't see him very well, but my sisters did. So they ran downstairs and said, oh, my God, he's so good looking. But he's got an enormous butt. And I was like... So now, when I met him for the first time, the first thing I wanted to look at was his butt. So I was like, I've got to check if this arse is as huge as I think it is.
It is.
Yeah, it's still very much there.
He loves you very much, and we apologise for the use of that word at lunchtime.
So just rewind a little bit. You're 19 years of age.
Yeah.
And you're, you know, two fathers, your father and your husband's father
Yeah.
arranged this, and that you speak on the phone.
Yeah.
And you build up a relationship, and then the next time you see each other, you are going to spend the rest of your
You're on a plane.
life together. I mean,
Yeah.
that's big, isn't it? Or,
Yes.
did you feel that was entirely natural for you?
I was
or?
19, so I wasn't really with it, to be honest. You know, like, I wasn't in a position where I was making the right decisions, but not to say that was a wrong decision for me.
Yeah.
But 19, 20, you know, so I got to 20, and then I realised, wow, this is a lot harder than I thought after we got married. You know, you have to actually live with someone to really know what they're like.
Yeah, because you lived in Luton and he lived in Leeds, so you had to move up to Leeds.
Yeah,
didn't you?
so I had to
Leave
go
your
up to
family.
Yorkshire. I didn't understand half the things they said to begin with. I was like, I couldn't understand anything he said. So that was a battle in itself. But, you know, you spend, you know, it took me a year before I thought, OK, I actually do know what he's like. And, you know, 11 years later, I'm still working him out. But, you know...
That's normal.
That's normal.
That's incredibly normal.
But you're thrown into that really intimate situation. And when I say intimate, I'm not necessarily talking bedroom stuff. You're talking about cooking together. But, you know, spending...
One of you could be messy, one could be tidy. Things that could really get on your nerves might not bother him.
Yeah, I mean, when we got married, we literally had a room and there was no preparation for my arrival at all. I'm still holding on to that one. Like, literally no preparation. There was just a very three-quarter bed and, like, a very kind of small bed and a wardrobe that was enough room for him to put his clothes away. I was like, what shall I do with my stuff then? Like, there was no room for my stuff.
Yeah.
And he said, you don't need those shoes. You can chuck those away and those away and those. I was like, yeah, this is going to be tougher than I thought. I think then I knew this is going to be tough. It's great to be good looking and to like each other and have that attraction. But I think the hard bit is after you get married.
I knew what the word honour was.
So that was a clip from you know, Nadia Hussain, who was the Great British Bake Off winner, talking about her experiences of arranged marriage. And so coming back to you, Adil, do you think someone like Nadia, who has you know, the celebrity status now and is well known, do you think someone like her endorsing arranged marriage to a certain extent helps others talk about it in our community?
Well, yeah,
and to say, you know, colleagues in the Western side, Western world?
Yeah, look, what's implied in what you just asked is the notion that arranged marriages are dated, etc. And for someone like Nadia to go on TV on a very good, you know, predominantly women's show, and talk about her own arranged marriage is quite reassuring for a lot of people. And it shows that you don't need to satisfy or sort of turn your arranged marriage into a pretentious love marriage and, you know, fake it, so to speak, in some situations. You know, you could be open about it. And look, she's obviously happy. Might not have gotten off to a great start, but nevertheless, you know, it's all like jokes. But yeah, it does help endorse it.
Okay. Masud, do you think it helps? For example, we're living, you know, when we're living in Britain, or if you're living in the West, sometimes this concept of arranged marriage, you know, some say non-Muslim or colleagues who aren't accustomed to this concept, they might kind of take a step back and think, wow, okay, arranged marriage, how does that work? And also, you know, why would you go down that pathway? But do you think having someone like Nadia, how do we challenge that kind of viewpoint?
Well, I think that it's a misunderstood subject. It's not as straightforward as people make it. You know, some people see it as, oh my God, you know, we're living in the 20-whatever century. And, you know, this is something outdated long from the past. So we are now developed, we are advanced. Why should we still hold on to these kind of values or concepts? But the other side of it all is that, you know, some people see it as the be-all and end-all. So the happy scenario is somewhere in between, to be honest, like I was indicating. I don't think there is a perfect model for arranged marriage. It all depends on what your experience is. And if you ask me, I would say yes, it was. It was an arranged marriage when I got married, and it could have all gone pear-shaped in the first, few days. But luckily, alhamdulillah, thanks to God, for the last 25 years, I've been, we both have lived happily in our marriage, and we hope to live and set a good example for much longer.
Mashallah.
Till the end.
So thank you.
It really depends on how much investment you put in. It's not to do with, what other people did, because to be honest, any marriage will have its own challenges, and there will always be people around you who will make it even harder. But it all depends on whether you want to let people tread over you or stamp over you, or whether you want to work together as a team and say, look, we've invested, we've made a commitment to make this marriage work. Let's stick together and fight till the end, whatever it takes. And then you become a winner rather than a victim.
Sure. Now, just carrying on from that, you spoke about your, mashallah, arranged marriage. How has traditional arranged marriage changed over the years? Because it's no longer the traditional way of doing things. Arranged marriage is much more modern now. It's the practices have changed over the years. For example, are people meeting one another for the first time for 15 minutes and then saying, yes, that's it, I want to marry you?
Things are changing. I think what I'm seeing is that the popularization of websites, so online dating effectively, albeit it's got Islamic titles,
online
matchmaking. I'm not going
to sites.
Name any of those sites. There are several, and people are using those. I mean, they have their use as well for people who live in the outskirts of the concentrated Muslim communities, or any community for that matter. But I think the important factor is that at the end of the day, the two people getting married, they agree to it, they understand what they're going into, and they're willing to be committed to make it work.
Sure. Thank you.
If you're just looking for, quick fixes and everything's going to be perfect, that's not the way to do it.
That's fine. Jubair, coming over to you, just wondering if you've ever been on those marriage websites, so if you know people who have.
Oh, thanks for prying into my personal life there. Yeah, sure. I've been on the websites and I've gave it a go. Nothing really came of it. I'm not sure why. I can't really pinpoint. Maybe it's just simply because of my sheer eccentricness.
That's fine. Now, but what would you say? I think, what are some of the kind of dangers of going down the pathway of using online sites, from your experience?
There's all manner of things that can happen. I won't really go into it, but I do.
Just so that someone watching at home thinking, I'm considering that option.
Well, you're responsible for your own actions, really. You can't blame other people. It takes two to tango, so there's two people involved. So there should be always at least one person that has a strong mind.
How secure are these sites? So someone who's if I was to upload a picture, say.
To be honest, they can get a bit evasive. So one of them was a bit evasive. That they were watching the conversations that were happening. Okay. So it was a bit.
And were you aware of this?
I was made aware of it at a later stage, and I was banned and all sorts of manner of stuff. It was simply I needed to have a exchange because I was still setting up, and it was a nightmare. Anyway, but to get back on the point, it's a hit and miss situation. You can fall into all manner of traps, but you can also find good as well. And some people don't have the access to. Well, there's a anxiety within the marriage sort of thing. I don't know what people call it, but there is an anxiety, and some people go to those websites and your apps and your this and your that, and because there's maybe slack in the parent. Not parent, the family department where they not having contacts and not being able to drum up the when you shout out, I want my son to get married. You don't want to sell yourself short and have your mum, waving a sign outside her house, trying to get perspectives to
Okay.
marry this weirdo.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. That's the end of this segment. Do stay with us. When we come back, we'll be talking about marriage and also looking at, the concept, the notion of forced marriage as well, and does it still exist, and how do we ensure that we do not become people involved in that. So do stay with us.